Haven't you educated him yet? Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock. Time to call the Monday, April Fool's Day 2024 meeting of the Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission to order. If staff could please confirm the presence of a quorum.
Yep, Mr. Bunkefist.
Present.
Mr. Horke.
Here.
Mr. Kahn.
Here.
Dr. Keen.
Here.
Mr. Maui.
Here.
Mr. McCarty.
Here.
Mr. Mooney. Mr. Neal.
Present.
And Mr. Woodard.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And our missing member had responded as being on vacation, so he will not be with us this evening. We're completing the agenda as published, so it is time to move on and attend to the minutes of the March 18th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to accept those minutes into our records?
Second.
Motion by Chris Woodard, seconded by Mike Neal. We're all present, so we can do this with a voice vote. Everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is there anybody opposed or abstaining? Minutes are approved. If staff would please review the rules of procedures for tonight's meeting, which includes just about every kind of thing we can deal with.
Yeah, so for this evening, we have public hearing items and items of business. So procedure for public hearing items. For items that require a public hearing, tonight's meeting has the following structure. The department will summarize the petition. Then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will then open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member of the group will be given 5 minutes to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to the Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then be given 10 minutes to respond to comments without interruption. The Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. This may include additional discussion with the petitioner. Next up is procedures for items of business. So for items that do not require a public hearing, the department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes. The Commission will then act upon the petition. And finally, we just wanted to cover some general rules of conduct for this meeting. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask you to please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please line up along the west wall once the public hearing is opened. Please sign in to the speaker sheet as you approach the podium to speak. And again, for efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone. For the record, we ask that you do not repeat previously stated comments. The presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there are approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person, comments regarding the petition, they should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. These comments will then be forwarded to the Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put on the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come to the podium and speak, please ensure that the microphone is on, as indicated by the green light on the base. So with that concludes the rules of procedures. Thank you for listening along, and we will proceed on with the meeting.
Thank you. We have 2 items on our consent agenda this evening. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented in the report.
Second. We have a motion from Andre Maui, second by Chris Woodard. Was that? If staff would please call the roll.
Mr. Bunkefist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Kahn?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodard.
Consent agenda is approved, thank you. Moving on, we have 4 items of business in front of us this evening. First item of business is petition 2402-PUD-02, the Ravinia PUD. Staff can bring us up to date, and then we'll hear from the petitioner if there's further comments.
Thank you, President, members of the Plan Commission. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is the Ravinia PUD District. For contextual purposes, the subject real estate is about 80 acres in size and is generally located at the northeast corner of Eagletown Road and West 166th Street. Additionally, just for an FYI, you can find previous exhibits embedded within the associated staff report. The petition was last in front of the APC at the March 18th workshop meeting. After reviewing the modifications since the workshop discussion, this item is ready for recommendation to the City Council at tonight's meeting. John Dobashewitz of Nelson Frankenberger is here tonight. He intends on making a brief presentation to update the Plan Commission on the changes since the workshop discussion. He is available for questions, as am I, if you guys have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dobashewitz, the floor is yours.
Good evening. For the record, John Dobashewitz with Nelson Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Platinum Properties Management Group. Paul Rio with Platinum Properties is here this evening, as well as Jim Schinover, an attorney with our office, and other members of the development team. I'll just real quickly review with the Plan Commission the adjustments that were made at the last meeting, and predominantly was with regard to the road layout and then positioning the fronts of dwellings, those larger estate-style dwellings, along a frontage road adjacent to Eagletown Road instead of the lots that are typical to Area B. That's the predominant change, as well as some slight modification to the entry location along Eagletown Road, and then the amenity location, flipping that to the south side of the street. Since your last meeting, we left the workshop meeting on the 18th with a couple of additional questions, in particular with regard to amenities and the request to provide additional amenity enhancements. And in response to that, the petitioner has revised the plan to add 2 additional half courts, or a pickleball court here, as well as basketball. As the Plan Commission may recall, there was additional discussion about the need perhaps for shade structures. So this shade structure here previously was laid out between the outdoor and indoor spaces inside the pool area. That's been shifted, so it's entirely within the inside the fenced pool area, and an additional shade structure with seating and benches is provided outside that space adjacent to the playground and basketball court. Lastly, we are asked to additionally detail the parking, both for bicycle parking as well as vehicular parking along the street in this location here and the location here, and bike parking right there. So we've striped that and identified it's got a bump out here that allows continual travel lanes in both directions, not to be interrupted with the on-street parking. So those are adjustments that are made. As a reminder to the Plan Commission, we're seeking your recommendation this evening onto the City Council. With a commitment, we were asked to consider restrictions with regard to rentals. Those restrictions are identical to restrictions that the Plan Commission seen in the past and the Council's approved developments, Lancaster being one of them, across from Grand Park. It restricts rentals to a hardship situation. And if it were in the case that a rental was approved, it would be for a minimum of 1 year and 1 month thereafter in terms of a minimum rental period. So that's something the Plan Commission's seen before. Just wanted to remind you of that. Any recommendation this evening, we would seek it to be sent to the Council with that recommendation, including the commitment. So with that, I'll address any questions that the Plan Commission may have.
Thank you. This is here for a recommendation. There is one condition that staff has included in the staff report. Are there questions for the petitioner's team or staff before we ask for a recommendation motion?
Just want to make a quick note of thank you all for your hard work with this. Since the workshop meeting, I'm thankful that you guys took our recommendations and included the pickleball and the basketball in the main activity area, and then also even going back prior to just listening to neighbors in the surrounding area to have better transitions with that. So just thank you for making this the best project it can be.
Thank you. Other commissioner questions or comments? Seeing none, this is in front of us for a recommendation to council. There is a condition from staff that include the developer commitment as outlined in Exhibit B, which John Dabashewitz has referenced. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the Ravinia PUD with the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mark Keen, seconded by Chris Woodard, to approve with the condition referencing the commitments. If staff would please call the roll.
Yep. Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Dr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard,
Yes.
and Mr. Bunkerfist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. Thank you. Close some tabs. Item next is petition 2402-PUD-04, the Winterberg PUD, which other than its name and petition number is pretty much identical to where we just went with Ravinia. It is in front of us for a recommendation. Staff can bring us up to date, then we'll hear from the petitioner.
Yep. So good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item before you tonight is the Winterberg Planned Unit Development District. This petition proposes to rezone roughly 206 acres of land generally located southwest of the intersection at 193rd Street and Casey Road for the development of a single-family residential neighborhood. The item received its first reading at the January 29th City Council meeting, public hearing on February 5th, and a workshop meeting on March 18th, both of the Advisory Plan Commission. Since the workshop meeting, the petitioner has incorporated the requested revisions into the ordinance language and exhibits regarding the on-site community amenities as further described in the staff report. Tonight, this item is up for a recommendation by the Advisory Plan Commission. John Dabashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger is here to provide a brief presentation on the item. Both the petitioner and staff are available to answer any questions, should there be any from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dabashewitz.
Thank you again. For the record, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger, representing Platinum Properties Management Company. As you can see from the exhibit on display, the item or image on the left was the old amenity plan. The image on the right is the new amenity plan. This subdivision has significantly more lots within it. Therefore, there's more amenity space that's included. Like the Ravinia project, the Plan Commission asked us to consider a few things. One was reorienting the basketball amenity, as well as adding shade structures and identifying parking in a manner similar to which it was done in Ravinia. So you can see in this plan, added parking along either of these two streets. And as you recall, these two streets don't have any driveways facing them. So all this parking will be available, it'll be striped. So you have a situation there where people should pay attention to that striping and allow for that number of parking spaces. Again, no driveways on adjacent lots. Those are side yards with the driveways facing north and facing south. In this situation, with this subdivision, it's a larger subdivision and would have, as agreed to by Platinum Properties, an indoor meeting space. That'll be provided here. We added that adjacent to the shade structure that's out here in this space, so it'll be located here. And then reoriented the basketball to be internal, provided 3 internal half basketball courts. The 3 structures you see here, here, and here, the 2 here have the sidewalk running through it with benches on either side, so that'll be a shade structure again like the others. But here, the situation is they added 3 additional shade structures between those basketball courts and the pickleball courts, so people would have an area to sit in that was shaded rather than just some benches adjacent to the courts that might otherwise not be shaded. That was an agreement with the developer, as well as identifying bicycle parking at these 2 locations throughout the development. These changes are in addition to everything that we reviewed at the workshop meeting on the 18th. So I didn't want to be redundant and go into that unless Plan Commission members had questions. But like the Ravinia request, here we also offered up commitments with regard to rentals, which are identical to that discussion in Ravinia, and we would ask the Plan Commission to consider forwarding a favor recommendation onto the City Council with the commitment in place, which is identical to the Ravinia commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, any questions or comments for staff or the petitioner?
Just again, I want to thank the petitioner for their hard work on this. I know it's a tough pill to swallow for my neighbors as well as myself, just living out here. But this development really accomplishes a lot of what we're trying to do out by us, whether it be improving our roads that will be needed in the future, securing some possible parkland that we might be able to take advantage of, and then just due to the lack of amenities that my neighborhood has had, when I look at it, the only word I can think of is awesome. This will be a great meeting space for the residents of Winterberg to be able to come into the heart of the community, go to the pool, basketball courts, pickleball, et cetera. And then also just adding the designated parking as well. I'm just very thankful for the attention to detail with this, so thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner questions or comments?
Echoing Victor's comments, I think my exact words were enhanced intentionality, and you've met that, so thank you very much.
I had a question, John, about the what prevents long-term parking or more than 24-hour parking in these off streets, because I don't think there's covenants that I could find.
There isn't anything. I'll check on that and have to go back perhaps to city code, not through zoning, but through city code to see if it can be identified as parking restricted to certain hours. Like, so you would prevent overnight.
Yeah.
So we can see if we can write that into and sign it so that it would restrict overnight parking. Then if the residents found that there was a situation where somebody was misusing or overusing that, they could call the, not the emergency line for the police, but identify it to the police and have the police either ticket or see that the vehicles are removed. But that's going to be in the city's right of way.
Well, that's what.
So it would be not a zoning issue, but a city code matter.
Right.
Good point, though. And then I just wanted to say one other thing, because I had mentioned at the workshop in regards to some of the wooded areas that we have on this property. Upon having a conversation with staff who helped educate me a little bit further on it, when you look at the topography here on this land, it'd be nice to keep that wooded area, but it is the lowest part on the property. So I very much so appreciate the dedication from staff as well as petitioner when we talked about drainage and that needs, is that sometimes you just have to make the tough decisions in order to do what needs to be done for a community.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, this is in front of us for a council recommendation inclusive of the identical rental commitments. Is there a motion regarding this?
Make a motion to approve 2402 PUD04 Winterberg PUD with the recommendation that the proposed developer commitments are also met as outlined in Exhibit 11.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to send a favorable recommendation with a commitment. If staff could please call the roll.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Dr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, Mr. Bunkefist,
Yes.
and Mr. Horke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you. Moving on, our next item of business is petition 2403-PUD-06, the North Point PUD. This has been in front of us a couple of times. Plan Commission may recall, we have continued the decision to require a workshop meeting, so that has not happened, and it is in front of us tonight for an update, and we can then make the decision on, are we comfortable it's complete and ready for a recommendation and officially waive the workshop, or have whatever discussion we need to have regarding that. And it is in front of us if we waive that for a recommendation to council. So staff can bring us up to date, and then we'll hear from the petitioner.
Thank you for outlining all that. For the record, Lauren Gillingham with the Community Development Department. I was trying to summarize everything that happened at the last meeting and was struggling, so thank you for bringing us all up to date. In the time since the March 4th meeting, I'm happy to say that I do think that we have reached a much better place than we previously were, especially in regards to landscaping. So in the time since, the task group met officially one additional time on March 15th. And then staff also met with task group representatives on a few other occasions. So really the most obvious adjustments are preservation plantings and landscape buffering standards, which you can see reflected in the concept plan. I can have the mouse, please. Thank you. So if you may recall, the original iteration of this plan included buffering on this side of the preservation area, essentially to serve as a sound mitigation, day one vision screening kind of solution. It turns out it's very hard to find a consensus between 7 people who all have different ways of seeing things. So in lieu of that, the developer has come up with a landscape stipend program, essentially. So the developer will be depositing with the city of Westfield $70,000 to be distributed between the 7 property owners on Anthony Road. So all of these 7 parcels here to the west, so that they may, buy landscaping that fits their needs and meets their desires. This is a one-time stipend, so this isn't a recurring thing, must be used on landscaping. This will be administered by the city. We're still working out final details on how that's gonna work, but this will be outlined in either a commitment or some kind of MOU to legally put everything into writing on how that's gonna work. There's also been updates to just other landscaping buffering, particularly along the external street frontage and in terms of overhead doors. But those are all outlined in my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any particular details that you'd like some clarity on, or the applicant is here to present.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, floor is yours.
Tree preservation area. So that is a change that has occurred since the last iteration of this. We've also dealt with a few things that may have been oversights probably in the previous version. We've eliminated any opportunity for increased building height through proximity slopes. So the building height is what the building height is. It can't be made higher by moving it further away from the property lines, which previous version arguably could have allowed that to occur. We've also tried to work with the request to have dark sky lighting by incorporating an exhibit which gives specifications and a specific example of what would be a permitted street light or internal parking lot light that is dark sky compliant. So trying to meet some of those requests of the task force group. I believe that Lauren's staff report and her presentation covers the bulk of the majority of those. We are of the understanding as well that what's before you tonight, there's no additional requested changes. I won't say has approval or agreement because I don't think that's a fair representation, but I can say that I think that there are no additional requested changes that have come from the task force group. And so we would hope that you would both waive the requirement to go to workshop and give a favorable recommendation of this to the council tonight. Happy to answer questions that you have, but we do appreciate the work of staff. I know that Lauren spent a lot of time with myself and members of the task force group kind of combing through this. I don't know what version document this is, but it's 10 at least. It might be 12. And so I appreciate that. Very cooperative. We've had very good exchange and very good conversation about this, and so I appreciate that effort. And obviously, the last time I expressed our concern our thanks on behalf of the developer to the administration for leading this effort, this collaborative effort. So with that, happy to answer questions, but would appreciate your support of this tonight.
Okay. Thank you. As I indicated, this is in front of us for a couple of decisions. The task group has done a yeoman's job of working through a myriad of details, which is what prompted us to continue to waive the requirement for a workshop meeting. It appears that they've accomplished their goal. We need to know what is or first, I guess I'll go ahead and throw it open for questions or comments if there are any for petitioner or staff, and then we'll determine if we will formally waive the workshop requirement. Any questions or comments for petitioner or staff?
No questions, but a few comments if I can. To me, this is a real clear case of how something belongs where it's shown. I mean, when you look at US 31, State Road 38, this use, the accessibility, it just seems like the right spot for it. Having said that, obviously there are neighbors who've been in place since US 31 and State Road 38 weren't what they are now, and I understand the need for sensitivity. I don't recall exactly, I think it's about 10 years that I've served on the APC, and in that time, I think it's absolutely unparalleled that I haven't seen anything close to this much sensitivity, as I called it, to the neighborhood with the amount of preservation area, 10 acres, the setbacks, the building heights. We talked lighting. I think this petitioner has done a fantastic job of being very accommodating and making something that's in the right spot still feel okay to the neighbors around it. And I'm sure there's some pain points here and there, people adapting to the growth that's happening in our community, but I think this is an exceptional example of somebody who's gone above and beyond to make it work. And I'm just happy to see this to the stage it is tonight.
Thank you. Victor, you have something that looked like you wanted to say?
Yeah, just continuing to display my thanks for task group, petitioner, especially staff. Lauren, you've done a fantastic job just getting everyone's thoughts and opinions on this, putting it all together. Mayor, I see we have guests in the back. We've all been able to work together, and to Maui's point, I think this development in particular, just unprecedented the amount of care that's gone into it. So just all around, I'm definitely much more comfortable with it than it was a month ago. We were able to work it out, our last task group. Now, everyone might be happy with what's before us, and that was never going to happen, but we're able to get to this point where I think, again, it's really good, so.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm new to this commission and board. I know some people have been here quite a long time, and it is just heartening to see the amount of collaboration. I've come from other communities that didn't have this type of collaboration at times, and it made working together tough. But at the end of the day, it's not government versus petitioners versus the citizens. It's a community coming together to work out a difference in a unique way. And it's just really fantastic. I'm really proud to be on this board, part of this process. I'm new to this board, but to see this come the way it has come together is really fantastic. And so thank you for all involved, from staff to the mayor and the mayor's office, and to Councilor McCarty, who's obviously on our board, and those that were part of this. Kudos to all.
Thank you.
And I'll do a final echo on that as well, as somebody who's also new. Not only thank you to staff, but just the precedent that's been set today. I mean, Westfield is a place, it's an incredible place to live, but hopefully one day it's going to be an even better place to work and actually stay and hang out here. And this type of diversification and the precedent that you all have established is incredibly well done. So thank you.
Thank you. Comments?
Well, I'm not going to make a comment. I'm just going to make a motion that we approve the North Point 2 PUD
But we need to,
and waive the requirement for a workshop
we need to
hearing.
do those separate.
We have to do those separate? Okay. Well,
I
then
believe so,
which one go-
Ashley. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we waive the workshop requirement for the North Point 2 PUD.
I will second.
That was you, or Billy? All right, we have a motion and a second from Mark Keen and Billy Bunkfist to waive the requirement for a workshop meeting. If staff would please call roll.
Yep, Dr. Keen,
Yes?
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, Mr. Bunkefist,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
and Mr. Khan.
Yes.
Motion to waive the workshop passes.
All right. That being the case, there are no recommended conditions from staff for the passage of this or for the recommendation to council. So we're ready for a clean recommendation from anybody who wants to. You were ready to do that a moment ago. You still ready?
I'll do it now. Yeah, that's fine. I'll move we approve North Point 2 PUD.
Second. We have a motion from Mark Keen, seconded by Mike Neal. Staff will please call the roll for the recommendation motion.
Yep, Dr. Keen,
Yes?
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, Mr. Bunkefist,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
and Mr. Khan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on, after I close some tabs to make sure I'm on the right petition. Next item on our items of business is petition 2403-PUD-08, the Towns at Union PUD amendment. Once again, in front of us for a recommendation to council. If staff can bring us up to date, and then we'll hear from the petitioner's team.
Thank you, President, members of the Plan Commission. Again, for the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is the Towns at Union PUD Amendment 1 proposal. The subject real estate is about 13 acres in size and generally located east of and adjacent to Union Street and southeast of David Brown Drive. The petition was last in front of the APC at the March 4th public hearing. After reviewing the modifications to the ordinance, this item is ready for recommendation to the City Council at tonight's meeting. John Dabashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger is here tonight. He intends on making a brief presentation to the Plan Commission. He is available for questions, as am I, if you guys have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Act 3 of the John Dabashewitz show, please begin.
I'll pay Russell back later.
I'm sure you will.
Again, for the record, John Dabashewitz, the petitioner here is Pulte Homes. If the Plan Commission will recall, the development of this site was approved as a PUD in September of 2022. At the time, it was designed for two-story townhomes, smaller size townhomes, lower price point. There are three changes that are being requested this evening. The first change would be to allow for three-story townhomes rather than two, a larger square footage for those individual townhomes being increased from a minimum of 1,800 square feet to 2,300 square feet in size. And the final amendment would be to allow 7 additional townhomes. The original approval was for 73, and now there are 80. So what you'll see on this plan is there's one, if you look at the screen on your left, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those individual buildings along that have added an additional unit on that side. After site engineering was done and the development plan was reviewed, there was room to accommodate that number of additional dwellings. This exhibit that's on display now shows in blue and in red enhancements that were proposed to be made. This dwelling illustration on the bottom, this one here, is not the exact elevation of the home that's going to be, it's just intended to provide an example where these dwellings would all have a minimum first floor masonry on the side elevation. The front elevation is identified on top. Also, as you recall, there was some hesitation on the part of staff to go ahead and make a recommendation, suspend your rules, make a recommendation at your meeting on March 4th. We weren't in a big hurry and agreed that the staff would be could take additional time to determine it was in support of the request, and they have let us know that they're in support of the request with the modification made that's in the ordinance today to enhance masonry on the side elevation. With that said, I believe there are two motions that we're seeking. One would be to suspend your rules and not go to workshop. The second would be to respectfully request that you make a favorable recommendation onto the City Council for this PUD amendment to allow the three items that I previously described. Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner questions or comments for staff or the petitioner? Do we have any? I like the changes. The additional population is really needed for the downtown area, so it's helpful that we'll have 7 more units to populate and dine at our restaurants and everything else we have going on there. This is an amendment to a previously approved PUD from a couple of years ago, and as such, it really doesn't have that much that would warrant any deeper dive at a additional workshop meeting. So unless the Plan Commission feels otherwise, so we would be open for a motion to waive the workshop meeting requirements.
Sorry, before we jump into that,
do you
I do
have
have a question.
Oh, okay.
It didn't occur to me until I was looking at it, not on the small screen, but on the bigger screen. Not the architect here, but is there anything that would be preferred different on the masonry from a petitioner's perspective if we were to loosen things? For example, where there's 2 out of 3 stories in masonry and then it transitions, would you have rathered have that whole facade be masonry and take it off of the ones adjacent to have or is it just me that's thinking that architecturally that would have been preferred if our standard didn't cause you to do this?
We can take a look at that. I understand what you're saying, so that the break perhaps wouldn't be at the corner, the transition point of masonry on the front versus the side. We're comfortable with the design as proposed. Trying to think of a way to work that in. If we were to desire to make modifications, I think it's permissible that we would be allowed to make modifications on the front. So it might be a situation where we would, on the front of the dwelling, go to a single-story masonry rather than 2 stories at that one location where there's the side elevation on the dwelling. So I think you're talking about here on the side. This may be 1 story of masonry, and the second one in be 2 stories of masonry, and so that single story wraps the corner.
Or the flip side, have 3 stories of masonry and 0,
on
where
the
you
side.
have a whole facade.
We wanted to pick up the third material on the side elevation. I think that was the desire.
Just wanted to make sure that we aren't forcing something that's not design logical based on hitting some targets or something. And we've had that discussion before about wanting those enhancements to make sense, and I wasn't sure if it was just tricking my eye. So if you're happy with it, then nothing further. I'm seeing heads nodding here, so, okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I didn't see it. Are there similar short-term rental covenants in this?
There are not.
So you cannot have a short-term rental in here, or you can?
Well, it's unrestricted, where the other 2 has restrictions in them. Here it wouldn't be restricted.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We could not hear what those questions were on the recording, so could we have the mic turned on and ask it again?
My question was, does this community allow short-term rentals in it?
Effectively, it's permitted everywhere in Westfield, and we were asked and agreed to on the other petitions to create a restriction.
And that's not really a Plan Commission element to determine that, defer to council if between our recommendation and that meeting, if they would like to see something, rather they jump into the fray to have that discussion.
I'm going to make the comment. I'm not wanting to waive workshop requirements. However, this has been hanging around for a couple, 3 years. It is a market improvement
Right.
over the original proposal. So I see no reason to have to go through the extra step of doing that. So I'm going to move that we waive the workshop requirement for this item.
Okay, motion by Mark Keene, seconded by, was that Chris Woodard? Okay, and I totally agree. This is an amendment. It's not a new proposal. It's essentially something we have already got on our books that could be built without even being in front of us. So I think we're doing a good thing here. So if staff will please call the roll on waiving the workshop meeting for this petition.
Yep. Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, Mr. Bunkelfist,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
and Dr. Keene.
Yes.
Motion to waive the workshop passes.
Workshop is waived, so we are now ready to have a recommendation from APC to City Council regarding this amendment.
Make a motion to recommend 2403 PUD 08 Towns at Union PUD amendment.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Willie Bunkfist, seconded by Andre Maui. Staff, please call the roll regarding sending this favorable recommendation to council.
Yep. Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, Mr. Bunkelfist,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
and Dr. Keene.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our items of business for this evening. We do have 2 public hearing items. First of which is petition 2403-PUD-07, the Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 6. If staff can fill us in, and then we'll hear from the petitioner's team.
Yep, so this is Dan Crabtree's project that he's been managing, but he couldn't be here this evening, so I will go ahead and provide just a brief introduction and overview of this item before you. So good evening, members of the board. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening for public hearing is a proposed amendment to a specific 26-acre portion of the Osborne Trails PUD. The real estate for which this proposal is located is in Area A of the existing PUD, for which the underlying zoning district is LB Local Business. The architectural standards of the State Highway 32 overlay apply to this property as well. This project proposes to add up to 140 townhome dwelling units on the property, in addition to refining development standards associated with amenities for both the adjoining West Fork Whiskey Distillery and restaurant and the townhomes themselves, which as a whole would create a village-like concept. As the APC may have noticed in the staff report, multiple revision requests from staff have been made to the petitioner, including providing more detail regarding the commercial block A shown in the concept plan, providing additional character exhibits for future buildings on block A, relocating the dog park to a more internal area of the development, and the prohibition of several land uses that would be otherwise permitted by right today. While those requests have not been made and was before you this evening, these requests will be further considered prior to the APC's workshop meeting, which is scheduled to be held on May 20th. This project has been properly noticed and advertised, and the department has received no public comments. The petitioner did have a neighborhood meeting last week, for which a summary has been provided as an exhibit to this evening's agenda. With that, Russell Brown of Clark Quinn Law is present this evening to give a brief presentation on behalf of the petitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, Act 2.
For the record, Russell Brown, Clark Quinn Law Firm, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. With me tonight on this matter is Blake Jones from West Fork Whiskey and members of the MI Homes team, including Jonathan Isaacs. As mentioned, this is an application as an amendment to the Osborne Trails PUD to allow for the construction of attached single-family housing in the form of townhomes and complementary retail uses adjacent and surrounding the existing West Fork Whiskey development. The goal here, as mentioned, is to create what we've called the West Fork District, the creation of a destination neighborhood and building a community around the West Fork brand. When West Fork chose Westfield over a number of communities in central Indiana several years ago to build their headquarters, they themselves created a food and beverage destination. The proposal before you will take that vision one step further, we believe, creating a neighborhood destination which will be supportive and cohesively developed with their existing headquarters property. I joke that there's a thing called alcohol tourism, and I am an alcohol tourist. I go and visit breweries and distilleries. Several years ago, I became an alcohol resident as well because I live 200 feet from my neighborhood brewery. And I chose there, and my neighbors chose to live in close proximity to that type of live-work environment. That's what we're envisioning here. People like me who want to live close to something they enjoy, to have it out their back door where they can walk and enjoy it responsibly as they desire. My son calls it stumbling distance. I was not going to put that on the record tonight, but I think it's a very great description of what the proximity we're talking about to this type of use. The proposal would add townhouse dwellings as a permitted use in Area A of Osborne Trails. Currently, West Fork's distillery use and other LB uses are the only permitted on this property. The amendment, as mentioned, would allow for up to 140 townhomes on the property. Under the ordinance, both 2- and 3-story would be permitted, but only 3-story are contemplated by this developer. All units would have 2-car garages, have 20-foot driveways, would have a 1,400 square foot minimum livable area under this proposed amendment. The amendment provides elevations of the proposed development, which were intentionally chosen both in design and colors to complement the existing West Fork headquarters. Again, we believe creating the intentionality of a district and not just 2 adjacent uses. We will be adding percentage of materials to the concept or to the character exhibits as part of our refining of this through the process. The concept plan also shows the proposed development preserving commercial uses along the 191st Street in conformance with many of the approved PUDs and development plans that begin as you cross the Monon and move westward along 191st Street. The concept plan also shows how an existing pipeline bifurcates this project, this parcel, creating design challenges as you're trying to create and develop a cohesive neighborhood. The concept plan shows that the townhome units would be alley-fed garages, so you're providing the front door view of the homes from virtually all exterior vantage points. Another aspect of the proposed site layout is to create the visual and the functional center of the district as that new developed pond, which is shown in these images. Around the pond will be what are contemplated to be joint amenity areas, like seating and pathways, but also a small stage area for intermittent use. The concept of outdoor event space like this was part of the size and the scale was contemplated as part of West Fork's original PUD amendment done several years ago. But this would now create a shared asset for both West Fork and for the residential neighborhood, a point of community gathering space. As shown, another focal point on or near the pond is the Rick House or the Rack House, depending on who you ask, for the aging of West Fork product. This will not be their primary or only aging facility, but it will be a functional aging facility. So the character exhibits for the amenity area show the structure, and I believe it to be an attractive and appealing structure, providing both an attractive form and a very useful function. The concept plan does show that area north of the existing facility as an expanded parking area, which has previously been reviewed and approved, and also an adjacent dog park. This is intended as an amenity to the district as a whole, not just to West Fork customers or not just to residents of the community. Staff, as mentioned, has discussed about could we move it somewhere else. I think we're open for those discussions, but want it to not feel like if you're a West Fork customer and you're using it, that you're going into someone's neighborhood to use their neighborhood dog park. That's not the intention of this amenity. It's intended to be a joint amenity. So we'll continue to talk through that with staff. The size and the location of the proposed uses of the commercial area have been the source of significant discussions between the applicant and city officials. I would say a conversation which is not completed or concluded at this time. The goal here is to have a complementary or cohesive commercial use. West Fork will be looking for a commercial neighbor or neighbors who create synergy and shared or like-minded customers. The location along 191st Street, from the applicant's perspective, isn't ideal for the typical drive-by, outlot, small-scale users, but would be a great location to add another partner who has a destination retail or commercial user of appropriate size and scale for the property, and also for being located near or adjacent to residential uses. The development team thinks that the right retail or commercial use will continue to make the West Fork District an attractive location for home ownership. Staff has requested further discussions on character exhibits, restrictions on certain use types, and consideration of the changes of proposed minimum building square footage. Again, the development team is committed to continuing those conversations with Community Development Department, the Economic Development Director, council members, and other stakeholders as we continue through this process. In summary, we believe that this project will deliver a uniquely focused live and play district that provides another housing option for Westfield while supporting a business user who bet big on your community several years ago when they moved to this location. West Fork proudly announced this project last week after council introduction of it, and have gotten great media coverage and feedback on the proposal. Blake's comment in the release and follow-up interviews have continued to express the desire to work with the council and the APC to have a project which is positive community impact, creating shared assets for their customers, for new residents, and the proposed residential development in the community at large. We think this project can do that and will do just that. And we look forward to your input throughout this process to make that happen. With that, happy to answer questions or hear feedback. We did hold a neighborhood meeting last week. We actually held an unofficial one because there was kind of a jump start, a false start on the filing of this. So we've held two, had neighbors from around who came and asked questions. I don't believe any of them are here tonight and had no negative feedback from folks as we walked through this process. So happy to hear your thoughts and as we move through the process.
Thank you. This item is in front of us for a public hearing first, so we will go ahead and open a public hearing on this item at 7:53 p.m. Do we have anybody signed up yet to speak?
Yeah, we have no one signed up.
Is there anybody in the room that feels the need to speak? Did not offer this reminder sooner, but in case there is a virtual attendee who has been waiting for this opportunity, please type quickly an email to planners@westfield.in.gov. And even if you have lengthy comments, at least get us an email that says, hold on, I have comments. So we'll hold off closing the public hearing for a minute and a half or so. See if there's an email that comes. These are such enjoyable dead times. Just as an FYI, in case there is one or more virtual attendees, this same reminder about emailing applies to the next item on our agenda, the Ackerson Farm PUD Amendment 1. So if there are any comments, be sure and get us an email timely so we'll be able to incorporate your thoughts. We are seconds away from 7:56, so if there is no email that's been received, I will go ahead and close the public hearing.
Yep, no emails.
Okay, public hearing is closed to 7:56. Plan Commission members, questions or comments for staff or the petitioner regarding this PUD amendment?
I have to say that personally, I'm not into this. I'd be more drawn to soda tourism if there was a thing. But, and I like space to get out of my John Deere. This doesn't really look like a place that I'd live, but that's just me personally. From an APC perspective, we're here to think about what's right for the city. And I think this is great. I mean, the village feel, the concept, I get the draw there. And it doesn't come with some of the challenges that, you know, we're not at the periphery of our developed areas and things like that. It's kind of right in the heart of a good spot for it. And I say thumbs up, it looks good to me. Other than, you're working out some details, but overall, I think this is right.
Thank you. Other commissioner questions or comments?
This is interesting for me as I live in Aberdeen, so I get to look at your beautiful facility every day. Much like Andre had mentioned, I'm a huge supporter and fan of this. I like the idea, I like the intent, I like the walkability from my home to this area. I think it's what, like you said, a lot of people will enjoy. Just a couple comments as we go through this. You know, as somebody who lives in that area, preservation of any trees and landscaping as possible will be key for support as we go out. I think most of the trees are in the Aberdeen easement anyway, but just food for thought on that end. And then, you know, we had seen, it's a little hard to tell from these elevations. I like the design, I like the intent. You had seen, however, on a previous PUD amendment for the towns at Union, some intentionality on, you know, side characteristics and material and high visibility areas. I'd like to make that same request. It's a little more intentional on the side and high vis areas, you know, specifically if you're looking at 1001 or 2601 or even 601, just areas in which it's that demising point for your development. And maybe it's a great material. It's like I said, it's kind of hard to see on the elevation, so I'd look forward to, I think, seeing a little more detail on that at our workshop meeting.
Thank you.
We'll just go on down the line here. So I know that my fellow counselors, they have their own thoughts with what they would like to see here and so forth, so I won't speak for them. As far as I'm concerned, yes, I do want to nail down the uses, much like Russell. We're going to be doing it at Westwood and some other areas, just because we want that, as Billy said, intentionality with what we're wanting in the area. And as you know, you're even wanting uses that fit specifically to the district, to West Fork. They're complementary. Unfortunately, we've had scenarios over the last couple of meetings where even though the intent was there previously, it's just been these blanket huge PUDs where the person who initially got it approved, or the entity that initially got it approved, they're no longer involved with it, and so now it's something completely different. So it's just got to make sure we're being proactive on that end with it. In terms of the architecture of the townhomes, I'm torn with this because we already have this product in our community in Bonterra. The funny thing is, though, is that, and I remember when you first came through with the initial building, and you know, different members up here gave feedback. I remember specifically giving feedback of you want that farmhouse feel out here. Well, you search farmhouse townhomes, and right here on Google, Bonterra pops up. So it's difficult to ask for something different when what you're proposing fits West Fork already. So I know I'm kind of being contradictory here a little bit, but just reviewing some other townhome options that are on the MI website and other inspirations, and then even to the point that, again, Billy just made for the towns at Union, of just having more intentionality, more uniqueness, because we want that unique district here for West Fork. Of when people think of West Fork, they think of a specific architecture. So whether it be maybe the townhomes not just being all white and you're adding some dimension with different colors or so forth, but just, again, something that is more unique to the area as opposed to something we already have inventory-wise in the community.
Thank you.
And at the risk of sounding redundant, I would make the recommendation eventually, once we do this, as a council member sitting next to me, that we do look very hard at the short-term rental situation for something with such close proximity. So outside of our purview, but I would like to just make that on the record.
No, on that note, what Dr. Shawitz has mentioned earlier, that's been used throughout our community now. The townhomes that are being built across from the Pacers Athletic Center, they have those exact same covenants that are being included there, so that's something we would want for this area as well.
Other commissioner questions or comments for staff or the petitioner? I like the architecture. If there is something that fits, that is different, I would certainly be pleased to accept that as well. It does appear that you have planned a trail connection to what looks to be a trail that's already existing in Mr. Bunkfist's neighborhood, so he'll be walking over to see you, which is helpful. I have really nothing further to add, but we do look forward to seeing you at the workshop meeting in May. If there's nobody else that wants to weigh in here, we will move on and attend to our last public hearing item, and thank you for your time here. Our second and last public hearing this evening is petition 2404-PUD-09, Ackerson Farm, PUD Amendment 1. Staff can bring us up to date, and then we will hear from the petitioner.
And then there was one.
What did you say, Brian?
We should have moved you to the top.
Yeah, no kidding.
What patience.
You had nothing better to do tonight. You were thrilled with all this, weren't you? All right. Staff, please proceed.
Yep, so good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is a proposed amendment to the Ackerson Farm PUD. This petition is related to residential areas 1 and 2 of the existing PUD, which totals roughly 80 acres located northwest of the intersection at 166th Street and Ditch Road, the area highlighted in yellow right here. The petition proposes to accomplish two things. The first is to modify the maximum garage door width to 9 feet, or modify the maximum garage door width from 9 feet to 18 feet, so increasing there to 18 feet. And secondly, modifying the minimum house floor line elevation, which also includes the front porch, from 4 feet to 2 feet above the adjacent sidewalk. The petition was properly noticed and advertised, and staff has received no public comments. Brian Stumpf with 11th Street Development is here tonight to provide a brief presentation. Both the petitioner and staff are available to answer any questions, should there be any from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. While Mr. Stumpf is preparing to speak, one last reminder to any potential virtual attendees. If you have anything that you would like to comment on, please quickly email staff at planners@westfield.in.gov. Mr. Stumpf.
Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. I'm Brian Stumpf with 11th Street Development, 9511 Angola Court, Suite 233, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm assisting Estridge Homes in adjusting the Ackerson Farm PUD for their Midland project. As Weston mentioned, Ackerson Farms is outlined in black here. It was approved in 2006 And put you in your time machine to kind of go back. Understand, this is a year before the iPhone was released, and 2 years before Westfield was a city. So it's been around a while.
But one of the Plan Commission members was on the Plan Commission back then. Not sure who that was.
We're seasoned.
Yeah.
So the portion that's affected, so it actually has its first amendment to the PUD, and it's affecting the 80 acres on the southern portion of the site. Estridge has purchased the portion essentially from Midland Trace South. This is their Midland community that's going in, and then it changes a bit. The products change as you head to the south. This amendment makes two minor changes to the PUD. The first one I'll address is the home elevation, and I'll talk about the theory behind it first. So when this PUD was written, it's a new urbanist development, very walkable, designed to be a walkable community and things of that nature. Not a lot of examples around. So the theory behind it is you've got these realms in a community. You've got the public space, which is the right-of-way, the semi-public space, which is your front yard, up to the front porch and the home, and then the backyard, which is private. The theory, and you can see it here on the left, is that this front porch is up usually 18 inches to 2.5 feet above the sidewalk, trying to provide that you're part of the public realm, but there's a little bit of separation or difference there. In what that looks like in application is here. This is a picture of a home in Harmony that's about 2 feet above the sidewalk. And so you've got that little bit of a split. Well, unfortunately, the way that the PUD was written is that the home had to be at least 4 feet above the sidewalk. And this is what ends up happening. These are also homes in Harmony on the very south side, where the lots ended up being, the homes are here 4 feet above the sidewalk. What you end up with are retaining walls, and which are not good because it end up with it destroys the intent of what the feel was for the community, as well as here's a manhole and some things that it's not good design to have this level of separation. So the item in this PUD seeks to put that at 2 foot for all of the homes, all the different lot types within the Ackerson Farm PUD. The second element really begins to touch on some of the, I like how Mr. Murray put it, the design logical of how things go. One of the elements, and I don't understand why, but was that all of the garage doors, you can only have a one-car garage door. So even if you have multiple bays in the garage, you can only have a one-car garage door. What Estridge is seeking to do is to have, or be allowed to use 2-car garage doors. And the caveat to that, while there are no requirements on the current garage doors, the commitment is that they would be architectural garage doors, as you see here. So either using paint, or this, as you can see it on, this is Exhibit C in the PUD. It's got brackets and things, other detailing. They're also working on some more contemporary designs. So we have the windows and these examples here for the garage doors. So those are the two simple things that are being sought in this PUD amendment. As Weston mentioned, we had sent this out for notice. I have not received any calls or emails. I like to flood everybody with my contact information. I've not heard from anyone regarding this petition. It's pretty straightforward, and so we'd be seeking a waiver to the workshop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This item does require a public hearing. It does not appear that there's going to be anybody speaking in the House. However, it is 8:08, and I'm opening a public hearing. Just in case there is a virtual attendee, I have already offered the reminder about sending an email. So I assume there's no emails yet, or you might have told me that. But we will still hold briefly, just in case somebody has just started to type. So it is going on 8:09. At 8:10, we'll close the public hearing if there is no email received wanting to make a comment about this. And while we are filling our dead air time, Plan Commissioners, be pondering your thoughts regarding the request to waive this workshop meeting. Similar to another petition tonight, this is an amendment, not an all-new thing. So there is a case to be made, but we'll discuss that after the public hearing closes. We are ticking off the seconds, and it is now 8:10. So if we have not received a email or multiple ones,
Yeah, no emails at this time.
okay. Public hearing is closed. So questions or comments for staff or the petitioner regarding what's in front of us? We'll address those if there are any, and then we'll figure out if we would like to waive a workshop meeting.
I just wanted to say that I agree with the lowering of the elevation. It's, I can tell you from personal experience, it's very hard for the elderly, my grandparents, to get up to all those things, and creates an issue in that capacity. And you can never have enough garage space, but I agree with those changes being made.
Any other questions or comments?
Great changes. Make the motion to waive the workshop meeting.
Second that.
So Victor McCarty motions to waive. Mark Keen seconds to waive. If staff would please call the roll.
Mr. Mooney? Oh, he is absent. Let's start that with Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mr. Bunkovist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
And Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Workshop has been waived.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I move to send a favorable recommendation to City Council on 2404-PUD-09 Ackerson Farms as presented.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Mike Neal, seconded by Victor McCarty.
Nope, Billy.
Oh, excuse me. I knew the voice was that direction, so.
Got the two youngest people sitting next to each
Branch,
other.
McCarty, followed by Bunkfist. Okay, now, if staff will please call the roll.
Yep. Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mr. Bunkovist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
And Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Favorable recommendation passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was worth hanging around for, wasn't it?
It was, well, I
And
can joke with Mr. Horke, he knows of my family situation. I've got 10 kids, so I've enjoyed the quiet this evening. It's been wonderful.
You're on public record.
I will be sending this.
Yeah, I know. They're probably watching, and my wife's gonna go, hey.
They were making sure you were here.
And I just wanted to mention one more thing before you go, Brian. Our city council meeting, this item will be back before council. We are actually holding the city council meeting, Victory, please confirm this, it's on the 9th at 5 p.m. And that's because of the eclipse. And then on the 9th, we also have BZA, which will start at 7 p.m.
Okay, so what time?
So
So 9 o'clock?
That will be
or
April 9th,
April 9th?
at 5 p.m.
Okay, great.
So just wanted to make that public service announcement there, just to
Before the BZA gets in.
not confuse anyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
That's what happens when you have the Final Four on the 8th, right?
That's right.
It's not the eclipse, it's the Final Four.
All right, so that completes all of our scheduled agenda items this evening. Just a little over an hour, not quite an hour and a quarter. Taking us down to reports and comments. Any random comments from Plan Commission members for each other? Seeing none, we can move on and get a report from our City Council liaison.
Yeah, just briefly, last week we had the swearing in of 9 new firefighters and 2 new police officers. And then under old business, we had ordinance 2419 authorizing the purchase of blanket bonds. And new business was something we saw tonight, Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 6. And that was it.
If I'm not mistaken, there was no BZA meeting in between our last meeting and tonight.
That's correct.
So no report there. Plat Committee did meet. There's not a lot that really happens at Plat, but we actually had like a 45-minute meeting, and we reviewed the preserve at Cool Creek and had some discussion about a lot of its unique characteristics of that piece of property. It's southwest of 191st and Grassy Branch, wrapping around 2 older established properties that are right on the corner there. It was approved. there's some things to do, but that's actually straight up zoning in a SF2 area, so there's no PUD. So actually, the rest of the approvals are going to be administrative, so we will not be seeing that here. We will not be meeting on the 8th because of some event that we're expecting to have thousands and thousands of visitors for. So hopefully they're all showing up and spending lots of money. Community Development Department, next and last.
Yeah, we don't have any comments other than just what we just mentioned. The council meeting will be on April 9th at 5 p.m., followed by BZA at 7 p.m. So I will be at both, along with a few of our other planning staff members here. So it's a doubleheader that night.
Aren't you lucky?
We're looking forward to it. We'll see you there.
All right, excellent. That takes us now to the point where we look for a motion to adjourn. Is everybody, having so much fun they don't want to adjourn, or is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Victor McCarty wants us to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mike Neal. We're all here, so we can do it on a voice vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? We are adjourned at 8:16.